My name is Elena Morales, and I'm 28 years old. If you had asked me 3 weeks ago who I was, I would have said daughter, provider, fixer. I wouldn't have known that by the end of one Sunday dinner, I would become something far more dangerous. It started with a coffee mug. My mother slammed it against the oak dining table, the same table I refinished during the pandemic, sanding it until my fingers bled so we could feel like a family again. You have 48 hours to get your things out, she said, her voice sharp enough to split bone. This house belongs to your sister now. The words didn't land all at once. They seeped into me. My father sat across from me, fork frozen midair, nodding as if she'd just announced we were switching cable providers. And my younger sister, Isabella, who had spent the last 4 years living her best influencer-adjacent life in Los Angeles, barely calling on birthdays, was suddenly inheriting the house I had poured 5 years and nearly $100,000 into saving. I looked around the dining room. The hardwood floors, I installed them. The recessed lighting, my bonus from Cloudcore Tech paid for that. The granite countertops gleaming under the chandelier, overtime shifts, weekends lost, dates canceled. I covered $95,000 in mortgage payments after Dad's construction company collapsed 3 years ago. I emptied my 401k without hesitation when foreclosure notices arrived. Because that's what daughters do, right? Across from me, Isabella didn't even have the decency to look guilty. She stared at her phone, manicured thumb scrolling lazily. You're the practical one, Elena, she said with a shrug. You'll figure something out. That sentence hurt more than my mother's ultimatum. Because it was true. I always did. But something inside my chest tightened, not with panic, with clarity. I didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't beg. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood I paid for, and walked to my bedroom. Behind me, conversation resumed. Casual, like they'd just reassigned bedrooms, not erased 5 years of my life. In my room, sage green walls I painted myself, I locked the door and called the only person who had ever told me the truth without sugarcoating it. Camilla, I whispered when she answered. Camilla Reyes, my best friend since Portland State, now a razor-sharp family law attorney downtown. They're giving the house to Isabella. Silence. Then, on what legal grounds? That question hadn't even crossed my mind. Legal grounds. I just assumed parents, family, authority. But the way Camilla asked it planted something small and electric in my brain. I don't know, I admitted. Do you know how the house transferred after your grandfather died? Grandpa Mateo, the man who taught me to plant tomatoes in the backyard, who used to say, this place has your fingerprints all over it, mija. I'd assumed it passed to my parents automatically. I've never seen paperwork, I said slowly. Give me 2 hours. After I hung up, I called my boyfriend, Daniel Harper. We'd been together a year. Steady, thoughtful, the opposite of chaos. When I told him what happened, his voice darkened in a way I'd never heard before. They can't just erase you like that. I think they just did. Then don't let them. His faith in me scared me, because I was starting to feel something dangerous blooming beneath the shock. Not revenge, strategy. The next morning, I woke up in the house I was no longer allowed to call mine. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows onto the stainless steel appliances I bought. 4 years ago, when the bank threatened foreclosure, I didn't hesitate. Dad had sat at the island, foreclosure letters scattered like confetti. Mom had whispered, we're going to lose everything. And I said, no, we're not. I drained my savings, worked double overtime, covered every payment. Isabella, she sent a text, you've always been the responsible one. You got this. I told myself it was fine. I was building our future. But now I realized something terrifying. My parents' phone calls with Isabella had grown longer recently. More private. Dad spoke about her real estate ambitions with a pride he rarely used for my promotions. Mom glowed when Isabella talked about coming home. I thought I was indispensable. I thought sacrifice guaranteed loyalty. I was wrong. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Camilla's voice was tight. Elena, you need to sit down. My knees weakened before she even continued. I pulled your grandfather's will from county records. My breath stopped. And? He left the house to you, sole heir, signed, notarized, filed 2 years before he passed. The room tilted. What? Your parents knew. I sank onto my bed. They hid it from you. The betrayal didn't explode. It crystallized. They let me invest nearly $100,000 into a house that was legally mine while planning to hand it to Isabella. This wasn't favoritism. It was theft. And suddenly the 48-hour ultimatum felt smaller, because I was no longer the powerless daughter being cast out. I was the legal owner, and they had just shown me exactly who they were. I looked around my room one last time. They thought I'd leave quietly. They thought I'd accept humiliation, like I always absorbed everything else. They were wrong. Very wrong. The morning after Camila told me about my grandfather's will, I didn't feel rage. I felt precision. My parents had left early for Salem to visit my aunt, a detail my mother mentioned casually the night before, as if issuing eviction notices was just another chore before a weekend trip. They thought I'd spend those 48 hours packing boxes and crying. Instead, I made a list. Every dollar I had invested, every receipt I had scanned and filed, every contractor invoice, the 65-inch Samsung TV mounted above the fireplace, the leather sectional I saved 6 months for, the Whirlpool washer and dryer set, the KitchenAid mixer I bought Mom for Christmas with my money, the custom curtains, the bedroom set, even the deck furniture. Each item wasn't just furniture. It was time. It was overtime pay. It was canceled vacations with Daniel. It was love, misplaced and exploited. Daniel came over that morning, his jaw tight when he saw the look in my eyes. "I've never seen you like this," he said quietly. "Like what?" "Calm." Because calm meant I'd already decided. Camilla called at 9 a.m. sharp. "I'm filing the petition to enforce the will today," she said. "We'll move fast. Your parents concealed it. That won't look good." "Good," I replied. "And Elena, document everything you removed from the house. Only take what you purchased." "I will." After we hung up, I searched for moving companies and found one that could come that afternoon, Cascade Relocation Services. By 2 p.m., a crew of 3 men in navy shirts stood in my living room. "Emergency move?" one of them asked. "Personal property," I corrected gently. "Only what belongs to me." Daniel helped me tag items with green tape. Green for mine, red for theirs. The process felt surgical. I left the dining table. That had been in the family since before I was born. But the chairs, I bought those. They went. The sectional was wrapped in thick, moving blankets. Watching them carry it out felt surreal, like peeling away the illusion of family piece by piece. Around noon, Mrs. Alvarez from next door knocked gently. She'd known my grandfather. "¿Qué lo que pasa, mija?" she asked softly. I didn't tell her about the will. I just said family situation. She squeezed my hands. "You were the one who kept this house alive." Her words nearly cracked my composure. Mr. Thompson from across the street wandered over too, shaking his head. "Your granddad adored you," he said. "He always said this place had your soul in it." My throat tightened. If only I'd known sooner. By 4 p.m., the house felt hollow, echoing, stripped of warmth. And then, sharp knocking. Not hesitant, demanding. I opened the door to find Isabella standing there, designer luggage at her feet, oversized sunglasses perched on her head like she'd just stepped out of an airport lounge commercial. She pushed past me before I could speak. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floors I installed. "What the hell happened?" she snapped. Her voice bounced off empty walls. "Where's everything?" I crossed my arms steady. "I took what belongs to me." She turned slowly. "Belongs to you?" "I paid for it." Her expression shifted from confusion to outrage. "Mom and Dad said this house is mine now." "Did they also tell you Grandpa Mateo left it to me?" Silence. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "The will," I said evenly. "Filed 2 years before he died. I'm the legal heir." Her laugh was brittle. "That's not true." "It is." Her confidence flickered, just slightly. "But entitlement is a powerful drug." "You're being vindictive," she snapped. "Stripping the house like this? That's pathetic." "No," I said softly. "What's pathetic is flying in to claim something you never fought for." Her face flushed. "I have a real career, Elena. I'm building something." "So was I replied. "Right here." She stormed into the kitchen. "The appliances too?" she shouted. "I bought them." "You can't just take everything." "I didn't. Only what I paid for." She pulled out her phone, hands trembling. "I'm calling Mom." "Go ahead." As she paced, her voice rose into hysteria. "She gutted the place. There's nothing here. How am I supposed to live like this?" I leaned against the wall, watching. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. She hung up, glaring at me. "They're driving back tonight." "Okay. You're finished." "No," I corrected gently. "I'm just getting started." She grabbed her suitcase, muttering curses, and stormed out. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Daniel exhaled slowly. "You okay?" I stared at the empty living room. "No," I admitted, but I felt powerful. For the first time in years. That evening, I sat in Camilla's downtown office while my phone buzzed nonstop. "Mom." "Dad?" "Mom." "Dad." "Isabella." Voicemail after voicemail. I didn't answer. Camilla looked up from her desk. "They're panicking," she said. "Good." She slid papers across the desk. "We've formally enforced the will. Your parents concealed it. That's serious." "What happens now?" "Now," she said calmly, "they realize they never had control." As if summoned by fate, my phone rang again. "Dad." This time I answered. "Elena," he barked, breathless. There's a man at the house claiming ownership. Some lawyer. What did you do? I held the phone steady. I enforced Grandpa's will. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said quietly. You did that when you tried to steal from me. Mom's voice took over on speaker. You're being dramatic. We were protecting the family. Which family? I asked. Because it clearly wasn't me. Silence, then anger. You need to come home and fix this. I'm not coming home, I replied. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. I hung up. Daniel squeezed my hand under the desk. Camilla leaned back in her chair. They underestimated you. Yes, they did. That night, I didn't go back to the house. Daniel drove me to his apartment instead. Neither of us spoke much during the ride. The city lights blurred past the windshield, and for the first time since Sunday dinner, the adrenaline began to wear off. What replaced it wasn't doubt. It was grief. Not for the house, for the illusion. Inside Daniel's apartment, I finally let myself sit down and breathe. He handed me a glass of water and crouched in front of me, his hands warm around mine. You did the right thing, he said gently. I know. But I didn't expect it to hurt this much. Because no one tells you that standing up for yourself feels like amputating something you once loved. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even look at it. Camilla had warned me. Once the will was enforced, the legal structure would shift fast. My grandfather's estate had never properly transferred. My parents had simply occupied the property, assuming I'd never question it. But the moment we filed the enforcement petition, everything moved. Title review, ownership clarification, and then the domino they never saw coming. My parents had quietly taken out a line of credit against the house 2 years ago, something Camilla uncovered while digging into county records. They'd leveraged a property that wasn't legally theirs. When the ownership dispute surfaced, that loan triggered immediate review by the bank. Within 48 hours, legal representatives were involved. And because the property technically belonged to me and had been encumbered without my knowledge, the situation escalated beyond a family disagreement. It became liability. That was the knock my father was panicking about. By the next afternoon, the situation exploded. I was sitting in Camilla's office again when she received a call from a colleague. She listened quietly, nodding. Then she hung up and looked at me. They tried to refinance the house last month, she said, likely preparing to transfer it to Isabella. A cold chill ran through me. They were going to cement it, I whispered. Yes. So what happens now? She exhaled slowly. The bank is freezing everything. There's a real possibility they'll force a sale to settle the loan dispute and clear title. The house. Sold. I hadn't wanted that. I wanted acknowledgement. Justice, but not erasure. That evening, my phone lit up again. Dad. This time his voice wasn't angry. It was frightened. Elena, they're talking about foreclosure. Foreclosure. The same word I'd fought so hard to prevent years ago. You should have thought about that before using my inheritance as collateral, I replied, my voice quieter than I expected. We were trying to stabilize things, he snapped weakly. You're overreacting. No, I said. I'm reacting exactly once. Mom grabbed the phone. You're destroying us, she accused. Something inside me cracked then, not in weakness, but in clarity. I saved you once, I said. You remember that? When foreclosure notices covered the kitchen counter? I emptied everything for you. I worked nights. I paid $95,000 to keep that house. Silence. You didn't protect the family, I continued. You protected Isabella's comfort. That's not fair, Mom whispered. It's accurate. Dad's voice softened unexpectedly. We thought you'd understand. There it was. The assumption that I would always absorb the blow, that I would always sacrifice, that my loyalty was permanent and unconditional, and that Isabella's happiness mattered more. I do understand, I said. I understand perfectly. And I ended the call. 3 weeks later, the house officially went on the market under legal supervision to resolve the financial entanglement. I didn't attend the listing. I didn't drive by. I didn't watch. When Camilla informed me that Pacific Crest Property Solutions had purchased it in a cash deal to expedite settlement, I simply nodded. The house that held my childhood. The garden my grandfather planted. The floors I installed. Gone. Not because I wanted revenge, but because deception has consequences. Daniel held me the night the sale finalized. You okay? He asked into my hair.
No, I admitted.
Regret? I thought about that. About Sunday dinner. About the coffee mug. About the will hidden in a county filing cabinet for 3 years. No, I said finally. Just recalibrating. Because something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't their fixer anymore. I wasn't their emergency fund. I wasn't the responsible one. I was simply Elena, and that identity was unfamiliar. My parents tried calling less after that. Their messages shifted from anger to guilt. Elena, we're your parents. Elena, families don't sue each other. Elena, Isabella is struggling. I blocked their numbers after the seventh voicemail in one day. Daniel watched me press the button. Permanent, he asked carefully. For now, I said. It wasn't rage. It was boundary. 6 months passed. 6 months of silence. 6 months of rebuilding. 6 months later, I stood barefoot in my new apartment in the Pearl District, sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Willamette River. The light felt different here. It didn't carry history. It didn't carry obligation. It didn't carry ghosts. It just existed. My leather sectional sat perfectly centered against the exposed brick wall. The same sectional Isabella had screamed about. The same one my mother said I had no right to remove. The 65-inch TV was mounted cleanly above a minimalist console Daniel helped me assemble. The Whirlpool washer and dryer hummed softly in the hallway closet. Everything in this space had been reclaimed, earned, chosen, mine. I had accepted a senior developer position at a fast-growing startup called LumaForge Technologies. The office was inside a converted warehouse with exposed beams and whiteboards covering every wall. My ideas were heard there, my code reviewed with respect. No one assumed I would fix everything simply because I was the responsible one. No one expected sacrifice as proof of love. Some evenings, after long days debugging back-end architecture, I would walk along the waterfront and think about how close I came to staying small, how close I came to apologizing. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard fragments of news. Isabella had scrambled to buy a townhouse in Beaverton. Without the house transfer, she'd been forced to drain her savings for a down payment. Her glossy social media posts had shifted from curated perfection to vague quotes about unexpected transitions. I didn't feel joy, just balance. My parents had moved into a rental in Hillsborough, a significant downgrade from the suburban home they once guarded so fiercely. Legal fees and the loan dispute left them financially strained. Mrs. Alvarez sent me a brief text one afternoon. Your parents don't come outside much anymore. I didn't know what to say to that. Reputation travels fast in long-standing neighborhoods. People talk. They connect dots. They remember who kept the lights on when foreclosure loomed. I never told the neighbors about the will, but they figured it out. Daniel and I grew closer through all of it. One night, as we sat on the balcony watching city lights shimmer across the river, he said something that startled me. You know what scares me? What? That you're stronger than you think, and someday you won't need anyone. I laughed softly. Strength doesn't mean isolation. He looked at me carefully. Then let me stay. There was no grand proposal, no dramatic gesture, just a quiet decision. 2 weeks later, his toothbrush appeared beside mine. For the first time in my adult life, partnership didn't feel like obligation. It felt like choice. Sometimes, usually late at night, I think about my grandfather, about the afternoons in the backyard when he'd guide my small hands around a shovel. This house will take care of you one day, he once said. I used to think he meant shelter. Now I understand. He meant lesson. The house taught me the cost of invisibility, the danger of overfunctioning for people who undervalue you, the illusion that sacrifice guarantees loyalty, and the most important inheritance he left me wasn't property. It was proof that I mattered, proof that someone saw me clearly. The last voicemail my mother left before I blocked her number still lingers in my memory. Elena, we never meant for it to go this far. But it had already gone too far the moment they assumed I would quietly accept betrayal. Sometimes unknown numbers still call. I don't answer. Not out of anger, out of peace. Because peace is expensive. It cost me a house. It cost me a family identity. It cost me the version of myself that believed love had to be earned through endurance. But what I gained? Autonomy, clarity, self-respect. Last Sunday, Daniel and I hosted dinner at our apartment. A small table, 4 friends, laughter echoing off brick walls. At one point, I caught my reflection in the window. Relaxed, unburdened, whole. If you had asked me a year ago who I was, I would have said, daughter, provider, fixer. Now, I'm Elena Morales, software developer, partner, woman who learned that the quiet ones are not weak, they are observant. And when pushed too far, they don't scream. They restructure everything.